Everybody good so far? Anything anybody wants to say? You got something?
Well, Mr. Still mentioned there what happened to Shiloh, possibly.
Okay.
The Philistines' victory may have led to Shiloh's capture, but the next time they encounter Eli's family, they have proved as a group to Nob. Several Bible passages mention Shiloh's destruction as a punishment for their sin, which is Jeremiah chapter 7 and chapter 26, and Psalm 78. And if Shiloh did fall at this time, its capture must have added greatly to Israel's general sense of despair, for the city left an important site for worship.
Okay. Okay. That may have answered my question because I didn't find that. One person that on a commentary had just said that maybe it was taken over by the Philistines. Didn't know. Okay. All right, if I could get somebody to read, we're going to read a little bit here, verses 1 through 11. If somebody would read, 2 through 11, I read 1. Somebody read 2 through 11, we'll pick up on that information. Thanks, Joe. All right, Ark's going to be there 20 years. Okay, so it's got a kind of a permanent place for a little while. But the same thing's happening in Israel that keeps happening over and over and over. What did Samuel tell them to get rid of? Their idols. They keep, back in Joshua, he's telling them the same thing. Are you going to worship the Lord, or are you going to bring in the idols of the Amorites and the Canaanites and all of them and do that? So we're still having the same issue. Well, it hasn't changed. Hey, it's 2021. We got the same issue. We still got people worshiping idols. Although the idols have changed, they're still worshiping idols. Back then, they're worshiping idols they made. Today, we're worshiping idols that we wished we had or something like that. Okay, but we're idol worshiping people in this world. Okay, we do that a lot. Samuel's telling them the same thing that Jacob did back in Genesis, get rid of your idols. And then a little bit later, Joshua did, get rid of your idols. It's the same stuff. It just keeps happening. Fortunately, the Lord brings somebody up in front of them and says, get rid of your idols. Yes, sir. sure you're not drinking much of it if you're a wine drinker. Yeah, very little of it. Well, I don't know. That stuff doesn't taste good to me, so I'm not going to drink any of it. But some people, it tastes good. I think it tastes terrible. But some folks think it tastes good, so they drink a lot of it. But yeah, if your mind's not right, you mess up. That's man's downfall in a lot of areas. If you're not thinking clearly, and alcohol keeps you from thinking clearly. It happens all the time. A couple things about the different gods and stuff of the Philistines and that. We got Baals and we got Asherus, and those were the chief god and goddess of the Canaanites and the Philistines and all of that. Baals is the god of fertility and is the son of Dagon, the Philistine one, right? Okay, so that's what Baal is. It's the son of Dagon, but it's also the god of fertility. And I don't mean like for having children. I mean so that the land is fertile so that you can grow. Okay? And then you have the Ashtoreth, which is the goddess of love and fertility, and that's more along the lines of having children and being successful there. Asherah is the mother goddess of El. And El was the creator god who was displaced by Baals. So they're all, I don't know how they can keep up with that and why they think one's a child of another and the child of another and the mother of another. Okay? They ought to just turn to the Lord and say, here we go. We got a God, and he is the God, and they need to worship him. And I don't know how they could get so far off, but mankind can do that, can't we? We can do a really bad job of a lot of things. Okay? And they were doing a really bad job back then, and I imagine there were so many superstitions and everything back in those days. I mean, look at the witch hunts that we had in the Boston area in the 15 and 1600s. Most of that was pretty bad. Right? And it just, man doing stupid things. Right? So they're just making up stuff here. You notice they poured water out? Okay, the symbol I got out of that was they're pouring their hearts out like they poured water out to the Lord. So they're coming around. They know they've messed up. They're starting to come around. Okay? As Israel did often, right? Every time they'd get to veering off on their own little tangent and do their own thing, and God would punish them, and they'd figure out they were being punished, and they'd come back to the Lord. And they'd pour their hearts out to the Lord. It happens over and over and over and over. Okay? Mankind does that all the time. Remember 9/11, what started happening when 9/11 occurred? Everybody went back to church. And I don't mean everybody, but a lot of people. Churches saw a large influx of people there for 3-4 months. Okay? Turn to the Lord. The Lord's punishing us. Well, I imagine the Lord punishes us pretty often, okay, because there's a lot of ugly in this world. And then there's no telling what his punishment is. His punishment might be you lose your job, or his punishment might be you get sick, or he might send a virus to this world, or he might knock down your church numbers, or he might have your friends move away that were holding you closer to the Lord. There's no telling what goes on. But it's just trials. Remember what the apostles said when they were being tried? They thought it was wonderful because they were worthy of being tried by other people because they were worshiping the Lord. They thought it was awesome. I'm worthy to be punished. Okay? So as Christians, if we're being corrected, we're being worthy of being punished. Okay? And I don't know what all punishments are in the world. There's all kinds. Okay? You could have struggles in your marriage, with your kids, with everything. Those are all struggles. Okay? If you're being punished by the Lord, you could just have struggles. Or you come out better from it, or you're not. Okay? Most of the time, Christians come out better for it. Okay? The Lord doesn't knock you down like Satan does. The Lord tries to get you to redirect and refocus. Okay? Did you get better, or did you not? Did you refocus on the Lord, or did you not? Okay? So Israel does this quite a bit, and it's not good. Okay? And notice that Samuel, keep praying to the Lord. The Philistines are coming. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. had that conversation the other day with the lady, commission and omission. And it's totally two different things. Yes, sir. Yeah, if people are not getting honest, then we're probably not looking like Christians enough. And in the education field, they've been honest pretty good. I mean, we're losing all grip on that right now. You can't hardly do anything. They tell us, do not talk about the Lord in school. Tell us that. We still do, but they tell us that. And we are constantly doing that in the football program. And it'll get us one day. All you got to do is lose. And they'll drag everything they got to get you out of there. And if we lose over there, we'll be gone, because they'll bring in, well, you've been preaching the Lord to these kids, which we do. We preach the Lord to the kids all the time. Every coach that gets up and talks to them talks about the Lord. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have your vaccination. Yeah, but then a lot of doctors and nurses won't do that. You know how doctors and nurses are. They're going to try and heal everybody. So there'll be a difference there. Now, did you notice the lamb was pretty young? It was still nursing. Okay, it couldn't be younger than 8 days. That's from Leviticus 22 and 27. It couldn't be younger than 8 days. That wasn't allowed. It had to be older than 8 years old. Okay, so at least it wasn't, like it wasn't just born. Okay, because some of us sitting there going, "Oh man, he took a little lamb that was just born." Well, it could only be 9 or 10 days old. So yeah, he did, which it seems pretty rough to us, but probably wasn't really rough back then, because that's what they did. They sacrificed to the Lord all the time. Now, I read a couple of commentaries on the loud noise the Lord made. Okay, they said it might have been just the Lord talking, because let's go back to Israel and Sinai. When the Lord talked to the Israelites at Sinai, they trembled. They were worried. They didn't want any more of it. So, and mine says thundered with a loud sound, or a mighty sound. Well, that could be thunder. It could be the Lord talking, because if it shook up the Israelites who knew that he was going to talk, what could it do to the Philistines who have no idea what the Lord is? So a couple of commentaries said that. You could probably take it for whatever you want it to be. Did he send lightning and thunder and just light up the sky and make all kinds of booming noise that echoed in the valleys and everything? Or did he verbally talk? Or did he make noise that he wanted to make to confuse them? Whatever it was, they were in a panic, okay, because they didn't know. Again, a lot of superstition back there, I'm sure, was involved. If this happened, it meant this. If that happened, it meant that. Nowadays, we kind of know all these ideas, okay, but back then they didn't. But threw them into confusion. It's pretty rare that the Israelites just went out and won because they were the Israelites. I mean, they probably won a couple of battles because they could, but most of the time the Lord gave them a few people, and the other group had a lot of people, and the Israelites won. Okay, so it wasn't the Israelites. They didn't do the winning. Okay, the Lord did the winning, and the Lord's doing the winning here. And there's several instances that we could read about where the Lord did the winning. Okay, because you don't have to have a lot of people if the Lord's on your side. So the Philistines are the big bad guys of this whole area. They're the ones that kind of control everything. They're the ones that are causing all the issues, and they got routed. Not good for them. And so however you want to take it as, what kind of noise that the Lord made, just however you want to take it. It was bad enough to upset them pretty bad. And the last name Joe read was Beth-Kar, and I could not find anywhere where that place is located. I have in my notes whereabouts unknown. So I couldn't find where Beth-Kar was. Somebody else may have a commentary that that knows where Beth Carr was. I could not find it anywhere. Okay? And I try not to look at the commentary in this Bible because I don't know who wrote it, so I don't look at it. I try and look at ones I can find from other places. Yes, sir. Yeah, especially back then when they didn't know any better. You know, nowadays we understand what's going on. Back then they didn't. You know. Hey, everybody okay with Philistines getting routed and all that stuff, and the Israelites wiping them out? Okay, and they kind of took care of them for a while. Okay, Philistine didn't bother anybody for a while, and not a whole lot anyway. Everybody good through verse 11? Okay, I've got just a few more verses to finish up chapter 7. It's verse 12 through 17, so somebody will finish reading the chapter. We'll finish up chapter 7. Okay, so Samuel sets up a stone. Can you remember anybody else setting up a stone? Jacob, can you remember anybody else setting up a stone? Yeah. Yeah, in Genesis 35:14, Jacob set up a stone. And Joshua set up a stone. And then when they crossed the river into the promised land, they grabbed a stone for each tribe and set up some stones. So setting up stones is pretty common. Okay, but yeah, Jacob set up some stones way earlier, a bunch of years before this one. So thought you might catch on a little bit. Okay. Notice it said the Israelites didn't have any problems with Philistines while Samuel was alive. You know, when Saul comes in and they fight the Philistines, they won all the time. Okay, so the Philistines weren't really a problem anymore because they won all the time. As long as Samuel was there, they were winning all the time. And even the Canaanites are leaving them alone right now. Everybody's leaving them alone. If the baddest guys around are leaving them alone, then everybody else ought to leave them alone, I guess. Because the Amorites and all of those guys, they're not messing with them anymore. Now, supposedly Samuel lived about age 100, somewhere in there. Okay, they don't really know, but somewhere in there. And at this point in time, they're thinking he's around 40. Okay, so don't know for sure, but they're thinking age 40. And so about 100 years, age 40. And of course, he was there while Saul was there. Okay, because remember, he anointed David too. So he's there all the way through Saul, and he's there at David. So we know he kept living for quite a while. And then it says Samuel would travel. Well, yeah, he traveled, and it was a good thing back then they weren't very far apart because you either traveled on a donkey or you walked, right? It's pretty much transportation. I guess you could ride on a cart being pulled by a donkey maybe, or an ox, but you weren't going anywhere very fast, okay? So, but these areas were not very far apart. Bethel, Gilgal, Mishpah, they were not very far apart, so it was easy for him to get to those areas. And he went to each of them, and he helped the people out, and he was the judge of Israel during this time span. He was the last one. So all of this is going on. And at this time, Samuel lived in Ramah, R-A-M-A-H, or Ramah, or Ramah, however you say it. I'm not real sure. Any guidance there? Ramah? Okay. And that was about 6 miles from where Jerusalem's going to be when they established Jerusalem, which is where what the Jebusites are right now, I believe. Okay, but they'll be there. About 6 miles away, and he built an altar there. And remember altars in those days? They were not, they didn't use concrete and make them real nice. They just stacked stones and stuff. Nothing was supposed to be a finished product when they had altars back then. So they were just regular altar, just stacking of stones to make an altar. And he had an altar there. And I'm sure that he judged there, and I'm sure that he sacrificed there all the time. Or why else would you have an altar? And I guess he's not in Shiloh, because of what Christy read a while ago. Possibly might be the reason why he's not in Shiloh. Maybe it was tore apart or something, destroyed a little bit. How are we with chapter 7? Everybody okay with the parts of it? Pulled up enough interesting things to make sense a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. So what does that tell you about the kings of Israel? They really weren't in charge. They were there, but they still had the Lord over them. And at this time, Samuel was still kind of controlling things. But, the monarchies there in Israel's time, they still had God over them. They weren't like everybody else that had all of their kings. All their kings were absolute rulers. They could do anything they wanted. And, well, the Israelite kings, they were kind of just leaders. They led the people. That's all they did, because they weren't going to be the king. The Lord is the king. Right? Like today, the Lord is our king. The Lord is the king. They had a king, but they wanted somebody to lead them into war. They wanted somebody to make the easy decisions for them. They didn't have a true king like all the people around. They thought they were getting one. They asked for one, but they didn't get that. They got what the Lord gave them. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And Samuel's going to be shocked here in chapter 8 when the Lord says, listen to the people. It's going to shock him, because he's thinking, hey, the Lord's fixing to just wipe out some folks. They're rebelling. Wipe out some more Israelites like he's done in the past. But no, the Lord says, Samuel, go ahead and listen to them. Listen to their complaining, and we'll work on it. Okay? So that's coming up in chapter 8 here, and we'll start it and read a little bit of it. But uh-huh. That's what the meaning is?
Yeah, and it also says one is a gift from God. And I'll read another definition that the Messiah maybe that, since it was part of the covenant, God was able to use part of the covenant in the future. Maybe it was just right on this thing.
Yeah, because I couldn't really find anything. Christy said her Bible had something. But yeah, I don't know. There really wasn't a concrete thing for why. Yeah. Okay. Would somebody read verses 1 through 9 of chapter 8, and then we'll stop after we take care of those 9 verses. said Samuel's old. They're thinking he's about 60 right now. Okay, so Mike, I called you old a while ago. Samuel's old. Yeah, I'm old. Brennan, you're not old. Yeah, but the rest of us were kind of old, you know. A little older than old. Yeah. Yeah. But he's around 60, they're thinking. Okay, so it's, you know, about 20 years have passed now. And long enough for Samuel's children to grow up and start being men out in the community. And what does he do? Makes them leaders. And then what does it say about them? Just like Eli's boys. They're corrupt. They're taking bribes. You know, they're skimming money. They're selling justice to the highest bidder. You know, it's not good. And the sad thing is, the word Joel means the Lord is God. That's what Joel means, the Lord is God. And Abijah, which is the other son, is my divine father is the Lord. So they've got some great names, but they're not living up to their great names because they're doing some bad things here. And so if you're wondering, you know, why are the people complaining and all of that? Well, who's kind of in charge a little bit now in some areas? Samuel's two boys are, and they're corrupt. So why do we want somebody corrupt? We could have a corrupt king over us. Why do we need corrupt men who are supposed to be judges? So there's some issues there. And like I was telling you a while ago, when we read about it, the Lord's going to say, listen to them. Okay, even though Samuel doesn't want to, Samuel's saying, no, they're rejecting me. And the Lord's saying, no, they're not rejecting you, Samuel. They're rejecting me, the Lord. Okay, so people are not doing very good here. They're wanting a king, although they don't realize they have the best king ever. The king that doesn't require a tenth of everything, their children to go to war and all of that stuff, and going to die because they're leading them into war. You know, when the children of Israel went to war, they died when they weren't doing things right. When they were doing things right and they went to war, they usually annihilated the other group, and there wasn't a lot of death there. Okay, so now we'll have a king, and we go to war, we're going to lose a lot of people because we got a king leading us instead of the Lord leading us. We got a king who wants all of your sons and daughters to do all of this stuff, to work for him in his fields, to take a tenth of all your grain and all of your wine and all of your animals. And then he wants your children to work for him to take care of all of that. Okay? The Lord God hasn't required a whole lot from these guys. Be obedient. Be faithful. Okay? Offer sacrifices to me like you're supposed to. Take care of the Levite clan. Not real hard. But they wanted to make it harder, I guess. Kind of like us. We make it hard. Well, you know, we're hard-headed. We make it harder. Yeah. Yeah. They don't listen, do they? And they did, didn't they? They're fixing to get it, and then they're going to have issues. And it's really a few hundred years down the road where it really gets bad, but they're going to have some issues that they didn't have before. Okay? And that's too bad for them. They should have not wished for that. Okay? They should have wished for something else, like go to the Lord and ask him to have better judges or something. Not to have your two sons. Have somebody else better to judge over us. And our Lord is still our king, and we got a judge to help us. That would have been a far better deal to ask for than to ask for this. Questions, anything? Hope I'm bringing out a few points that make a little bit of sense and help put the pieces together. Hoping you're getting a little bit out of it. They could, yeah. I don't think it'll happen. Yeah, they could. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, the world is not a good place. There's a lot of ugly in it, and there's plenty of that. And it's too bad. It's too bad everybody hates each other all the time now. There's plenty of hate in this world. Happens all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the gun's killing people. Pretty sure it's a person, but yeah. Yeah. So unfortunately, we got people that are going to do that. Thank y'all. We'll pick up there next week.